Hello and welcome to the Lift Shit Get Banged podcast with myself, Ben, and the lovely Sophia.
Hello everybody.
Sophia's laughing because I still can't get the name of our podcast right, and I did just get it right, but second guess myself. Today you are going to be listening to this on the 28th of December 2025, so we're going to go through all things reflecting on the years that we've just had and doing a bit of planning and goal setting for 2026.
Yeah, because it's almost New Year's, bitches. We can almost say goodbye to 2025 and celebrate a brand new year with lots of exciting things to come.
How busy is your New Year's Eve typically? I am, to match the grey hairs on my head, I am normally sat at home watching Jules Holland's Annual Hootenanny.
Sweet. That's so cute.
Trying to stay awake until midnight. I'm so old, I really am. What's your New Year's Eve like?
Well, actually, you say this, the last couple of years, mine have also been chill. Last year, actually, we stayed indoors, had tea and played chess. So also, I like to enter the New Year's, in more recent years, just feeling calm.
Yeah.
And go for like a nice walk on New Year's Day. I used to go out partying at like 12 o'clock New Year's Eve, don't come back until the 2nd of January and feel like a piece of shit, but I
always hated that. Like when I was like at the peak of like going out and drinking, I was also super into like personal development. So I would always hate that my new year would start with an absolute waste of a day on the 1st, a really bad hangover.
Exactly.
I'd be smashed as the actual bell told 12.
Exactly.
I hated it. I really hated it.
Either way, we want to make sure that even before the New Year's approaches, we are spending a little bit of time reflecting on the cool things that have happened in 2025, because I think that's always something that people forget to do, and I certainly used to forget to do this, is actually realise how far we've bloody come and the cool things that we've done the past 12 months.
We're terrible at it. Most people are.
Yeah.
Most people aren't very good at taking stock of what's actually changed and what's that, because I think even just humans, we're wired to just look ahead, aren't we? And just look at what's next and what's next. And as soon as you achieve something, it feels normal.
I've been so guilty of that over the years, just on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And this is why we encourage a structured review of your last year.
Yeah.
Sitting down, grabbing a pen and paper, grab yourself a cup of tea, a glass of wine, some snacks, whatever feels good for you. Some Pepsi Max. We're not sponsored by Pepsi Max, by the way. We've just turned up with the same drink today.
I'd definitely prefer a White Monster sponsorship. That'd save me a lot of money.
Yeah, if I'm honest, it's not my personal go-to. No, I used to, and I do still sometimes when I'm training, but it makes me quite anxious sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's too much caffeine in one go.
I did get to a point where I was consistently having 2 a day. And now I don't do that, and it does that. I do feel a bit anxious if I have 2.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's quite a lot of caffeine, isn't it?
Like, obviously I joke about White Monsters, but there's a corner of the fitness industry on social media that make White Monsters their identity.
Really?
I get sent reels all the time.
Really?
From Soph, Rachel sent me a couple, Kylie sent me a few. So people associate that with my identity, clearly, but there's quite a few people that just love White Monsters.
One of my clients sent me the other day, actually, she was like, this is you, and it is somebody with like 2 split 50-50 personalities. So like one weekend they're at a rave and like in the middle of nowhere, partying like in their bikini on the beach, and then the following weekend they're like meditating and going to the gym. She was like, this is you to a T.
So where would you start with your goal setting? Would you start with some reflections?
Absolutely. And I think if you're doing this on a yearly basis, it makes it very easy to look back at previous notes that you've done. So something that I personally do each year is I will sit down with my 2025 goals list that I did the year before. And I will look at things that I've ticked off, things that I've achieved, maybe extra things that have come up that I didn't realise were going to be in there. Which
always happens.
Always happens. So my big ones this year were to just have a consistent, healthy year with training. And obviously I'm speaking about this very vaguely. For some of you guys, the health part might be a little bit more specific, which we'll talk about in just a second. But for me, it was just have a healthy, consistent training year and to travel, and I wanted to do a month away on my own. That was part of the goals, and a few other kind of personal, financial ones.
You've done the big ones, haven't you?
Yeah, I've ticked off, I'm proud to say, I've ticked off every single goal that I set myself this year, which I'm really proud of.
I can't remember what mine were actually.
Oh, go on.
I think. The big one was to, and this is quite personal, but I don't mind sharing it, were to provide for Soph and Lila independently, as Soph's maternity leave was going to be finishing. The big one, and I think new parents will be able to understand that the big one that was just on my mind was being able to not have Soph have to go back to work after Lila was born. And I think this is probably, and like, don't get me wrong, this is not every year. Like for me, I do have much more specific goals that I want to set this year. But I think my last year definitely looked quite vague and just centered around just doing the best I can at becoming a dad. Show up how I wanted to show up for my clients, for family, for friends, with that big life change. And we're going to go into like how it can be really important to break things down very specifically, to look at the process. But I think that's quite a cool random example that there will be years where it is actually just, I know so much is going to change and I just need to show up and do my best.
Consistency is a really cool goal to set, especially if you've got quite a busy year ahead of you, specifically with your fitness goals. And don't forget to look back and take a moment just to say, fucking well done, like you've done it. And well done, even if it felt really hard, even if some of your goals changed, even if maybe things didn't go to plan. If you can look back and say, well, I'm not dead, I've got through it, you know.
It's always a good one.
That's always a good start. I might have had many nervous breakdowns, but you know, we're here, we're surviving, even if you're not thriving. And you know, that's good enough, you know. So give yourself a pat on the back for that, and don't forget to acknowledge that, you know, you've put in a solid effort, you've got through the year, and sometimes that is more than enough to do that.
The reflection part can be really helpful to ground you in what is actually important. Like you just said, we're kind of joking when we say survived, we're still here, we're healthy, but whenever we unfortunately have any kind of health scare, or a family member has a health scare, or something happens to our house, or you know, something that really is life-changing, it very quickly grounds us in what's actually important. If those big things are still happening, of I'm healthy, I'm living a life I want to live, my family are healthy, there's a roof over my head, it really does kind of make the extra bits seem like fun little projects quite a lot of the time. Pillars are taken care of, but when we start going through day-to-day life, we forget about I'm healthy, I'm grateful for being healthy. It's hard to stay present with that stuff, isn't it, year round? This
is why it can be really important to revisit your goals, but also just, you know, practice gratitude as much as you can, even if you're not doing like a gratitude list every morning, just taking a moment to think about those things. Something that can also be really valuable looking back at your year is thinking about what we can then take forward. Okay, if something didn't quite go to plan, what do we actually want to reframe and focus on this year? And this could look like the format of doing things that we want to keep in versus things that we might want to get rid of. So, for example, mine last year, I think I went through a really bad phase of just like doom scrolling every morning. And one of my outs was doom scrolling in the morning. And one of my ins was have a morning routine, and I'm not talking like a 2-hour like ice bath routine, but just one that is gonna set me up to feel good for the rest of my day. And for me personally, that was one of them. Do you have any ins versus outs?
I was in a real vicious cycle of personal development. Actually, my out last year was very different. With having Lila and that making my life a lovely upside down chaos, it kind of forced me to let go of a lot of the perfectionist personal development tendencies that I had. Like, and you know this very well from knowing me before Henley Fitness, like I would not be in the car without listening to some kind of growth related podcast, whether it work, financial, health related.
And I thought I used to be really intense at that, and then we met, and I was like, I've met my match.
And just so many of my thoughts were consumed by personal development, and at the core of it was not feeling good enough and constantly wanting to be better. So my out that kind of happened unintentionally was this fixation on personal development, because I just had to embrace the chaos and just try and focus on doing my best. And it's actually taken me into this year not having that fixation on personal development anymore, and kind of making things so much quieter and calmer up here and clearer on what feels important, which is very deep, but like good. That for me was a very unique in and out last year.
That's really cool, and I think a clear example how our ins and outs were very different. Mine was a very practical one, and yours was actually a bit of reflection and something that is trickling into your day-to-day in a very different way.
So if you've done your reflecting, where do you start with, now I want to make some changes for 2026, or set some intentions?
A really nice place to start. So we're going to talk today specifically more around health and fitness goals, personal development, but as an overall look at your next year, because I'm sure that you will have other goals outside of just health and fitness, is breaking it down into different categories. So it could be family, social, environment, financial, career, health and fitness. Make that whatever you want it to be. It could be, if you're really into the way that you dress, it could be how you're going to show up for yourself and your personal hygiene and styling yourself, or it could be hobbies. That might be another one. Choosing your areas and almost reflecting back on how you're feeling with them now. So I quite like to do a rate out of 10. So the last couple of years, my personal development and my health and fitness has been like a 9 or an 8 out of 10. But then my social and my environment ones have maybe a bit, or like presence with my family have been different. And I think that gives us a really clear indicator of, okay, what do I actually want to work on, instead of automatically thinking I should have a health goal, I should have a finances goal, and looking at, actually I'm quite satisfied with where I'm at the moment. I don't need to work on that as much, versus, okay, this is what I actually really want to draw my attention to.
We almost want to look at those areas and think, where do I want to try and gain, and where do I need to maintain? We only have so many eggs that we can put in different baskets.
Absolutely.
We can't. The aim isn't to sit here this time next year and be a 10 in everything.
No way.
We're not robots.
No way.
We have to, and the analogy I use all the time is, imagine we've got like a DJ deck with different, what would they be called? Let's say levels or buttons that slide up and down. We have to balance everything relevant to the effort that we can put in, and the mental energy, the physical energy, the time that we can put into what we're trying to do. So we have to kind of slide some areas up, and to make that happen, we have to slide other areas down. And it means that it's not an on or off switch. It's not like if we want to start focusing a bit more on our career, we just switch off our social life. We just dim it slightly. We make it a bit quieter. So I think when we're looking at these areas, and when you lay those areas out, asking ourselves, where do I want to gain this year? What feels the most important? And then where am I going to have to pull back a little bit and maintain to make room for that? Because we can't just go all of them, whack them straight up.
Absolutely. And it could even be like, I want to improve my home environment and have, you know, a lovely cozy home. But that might contradict with, like, you're not going to be able to travel the world in the same year. And being focused on exactly what it is you want to achieve really helps us actually achieve it, because we're not trying to spin 17 different plates at once.
It's like a financial budget, isn't it? It's probably a better analogy.
Exactly.
You can't, if you want to make loads of home improvements, you can't just magic money from somewhere else to then go on 3 holidays. You have to sit down and look at...
I wish you could.
You can get a loan or a credit card, but you have to sit down and look at, where do I want to spend my budget? Because it's not just infinite. And it's imagining that we have like an energy budget.
Exactly that. Your budget is your energy, and also time. Also time, and actually dedicating time to what you want to achieve.
You've got your categories. What's next?
Something that we see all the time, we're calling all of you out, is when you start your coaching or looking at your overall goals, you'll come to us and say, this year, I want to be healthy, or I want to be super fit. But the issue with this is that that is a very broad goal that looks so different for everybody. And it also gives us no means to how we're going to get there. Okay, how are we going to feel healthier? And what does that look like for you? So for example, this could be, I want to wake up every morning and feel like I've got lots of energy. And then it's looking at, okay, well, how are we going to get there? So this might be, I'm going to make sure that I'm prioritizing my sleep. It might be, I'm going to make sure that I'm fueling my body in a way that feels good so that I feel energized. Or it could be, I'm going to build muscles so I feel stronger. And that's, you know, we've taken that very broad umbrella of I want to feel healthy and looking at specifically what that means to you. And then specific categories underneath that of, okay, what does that actually look like from a very practical standpoint? And we then want to almost open that up and home in on it even more by breaking it down into practices that we can do on a daily basis and being super specific with those goals.
Yeah, and I think if you're struggling to get specific with it, I think a really good framework to help understand what we actually want to get out of that vague goal of I want to be healthy is to ask ourselves the 3 whys. Ask ourselves the question why 3 times. So if it's I want to be healthy and we say why, it might take a little while to come up with something, but it might be I want to feel less limited by my body. I don't want to be out of breath when I go up the stairs, or I want to be able to run after my children effortlessly. And then we ask ourselves why. And it might be, it then goes into a much deeper level of I want my children to see me feel really good in my own body. And then we ask ourselves why. And we're just digging into why this stuff is important. And I think it can be a little bit cliche when you see everyone says like you need to find your why, but it's understanding how that goal links to our values. Not just a surface level, I want to be healthy. It's why is this important to me? What is actually going to get me out of bed in the morning and make me want to move towards these goals? And then I think for me, the way my brain works is if I just have a very kind of vague outcome, I will struggle to keep it front of mind. For me, I have to break it down, like you just said, into what's the actual process that I'm going to go through? What are the habits that I need to have on a daily basis? What's the first milestone for me to then review how that lived experience actually felt? That for me is one of the biggest pitfalls that people fall into. And when I was in that perfectionist personal development kind of trap that I was talking about, I would map out the perfect year in so much detail.
How did that go normally?
I would barely even get started with it because I would realise that there's a human that's going to have to live that experience.
Yeah.
And the experience feels completely, or it might feel exactly how we expect it to, and it might feel great. And the stuff that we're going after feels aligned with our values, we're enjoying the process, we're being consistent, but there's also a chance that we could map everything out in loads of detail and then get started and go, oh, that bit's actually tougher than I expected. I'm not even really enjoying that bit. That bit was easier than I thought it was going to be. Actually, that goal I've put there is probably 6 months down the line. We have to regularly do this process every few months, not just once a year, because it's a human, we're the human going through it, not a robot that we're designing a path to follow. And
something we recommend is breaking this down into quarterly, or let's say, every 3 months or so, segments of your year, so that you've got checkpoints that you can reflect, that you can really break it down into those quarters, so that number one, you're being specific, and being able to look at what is going to be realistic in a certain time frame, but also reevaluating and assessing, as you just said, okay, how is this actually working for me right now? Is there anything that I might want to change? And it's actually so brilliant to look at a goal and go, actually, I don't want to do that anymore because that fucking sucks. And for a lot of you, it might be, I want to lose 1 kilo a week. And then you actually go balls deep into a more aggressive calorie deficit, and you're like, this is actually horrendous and it's the bane of my life. And realizing that actually you might want to take it a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Or it could be one of my clients, actually, we had this conversation the other day. She said to me at the start of last year that she wanted to run a marathon. And as we've gone through quarters, and this is something that you will do with us if during the one-to-one coaching as well, we encourage it kind of through our calls and bits that we check in on this regularly. And we had in one of our calls, she said, well, actually, I really don't want to do long runs every week because it's taken away from my social life and my downtime. She's got a really stressful job, and on reflection, we actually came to the decision of, I don't want to run marathons. I was only doing it because all of my friends were doing it, and I thought that's but the next step was for me. And we've then reassessed and changed her goals. So not only does it help us be really specific about, okay, this is what it's going to take for us to actually hit that bigger goal, but also having checkpoints of reflecting and finding out, okay, is this working for me, is this not, and what do I need to change?
This stuff isn't going to have the effect that we want it to have in terms of the changes we want to see without that regular reflection. It's a bit like if anyone listening to this has thought about hiring a coach, it's a bit like hiring a coach that goes, there's the plan, see you in a year, compared to, here's the plan, here's step 1, let's do that, and then let's see how that felt. And then you check in with that coach and you talk about how the experience actually felt, what you learned from it, what you're going to take away from it and what you're going to leave behind. And then you go, the step 2 that we mapped out, do I think that still feels right? Yeah, great. If not, let's tweak it slightly. And you're coaching yourself through this process, but the goal setting alone isn't the thing that's going to help us make change.
It's not saying I want to be healthy this year.
No.
Let's be realistic, that does absolute bugger all.
It gives us the direction, the lived experience and the reflection on the lived experience and the learning is what helps us make the changes that we're trying to make.
Yeah, and if you are a client of ours, we prompt you to do this, and if you're thinking, I don't have the fucking time for that, come and join us for one-to-one coaching because we can help you through this. But, you know, hopefully you'll have at least one day over the Christmas period or, you know, as you enter the new year to spend a little bit of time on this. And it can be useful just to pop it in your calendar like every 3 months or so on a Sunday afternoon when you're chilling out. Yeah. You've got a little moment to reflect, so you can tune into this as well. So whether you're doing it with us or whether you're doing it on your own, it's a similar structure that we will follow. And I think from there it's looking at, okay, we've got these goals, we've broken it down into quarters, and we've now set in points where we can reflect. But it's also looking at how we can make these small actionable points on a daily basis. I think this is quite useful, like you said, to focus more so on the next 3 months instead of trying to map out the whole year, because that can be super overwhelming. Let's say your goal is a fat loss goal. In month 1, I want to, on a daily basis, hit X amount of steps. So then we can break it down into, I'm going to go for a 15-minute walk every morning. That's just one example, but we want to look at how can we break it down, and is that actually going to be realistic in my day-to-day? We're
creating a process off the back of that initial short-term goal that we're trying to hit. It might be, I'm going to train 3 times a week. It might be, I'm going to track my calories as a really basic example, and I'm going to aim for X target. We give that a go. We see how it felt. We see if we could actually be consistent with it, and if we could be consistent with it, is it working over a 3-4 week period? Is it seeing the change that I want it to see? If it is, great, we carry on. If it's not, what do I need to change? What lever am I going to pull on to see if I can start to see that progress with the process that we're going through? So again, that goal gives us a direction, and we create a process off of that, and then we see how that process actually feels, and then we tweak it and change it as we go.
And something that you said earlier, which I loved, was actually making sure that these goals are achievable instead of trying to strive for doing everything at once. And we would highly encourage you guys to actually just pick one or two things. Don't try and do everything. And this is something, once again, we see it all the time. People go, right, I'm going to train 5 days a week. I'm going to hit 10,000 steps. I'm going to stretch every day. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to do Pilates. And we're like, whoa, if you did that in week 1, you probably have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to draw our attention to any one of those things and get consistent with it, because your diary is going to go from 0 to 1,000 really quickly. So just pick one or two things. It doesn't need to be particularly fancy. It could be something as simple as, like you said, when I'm scheduling in my walks, and maybe a couple of weeks in, you can go, right, let's now introduce training. It doesn't need to be, you know, new year, new me, a full 360 on your life all of a sudden. This is not what we're encouraging, because that can be really fucking hard. And that's where we see most people fail, because you try and do too much at once and it just gets really fucking overwhelming.
Yeah, and I would always rather see a brand new client. Ben, that 2 sessions you gave me was so easy. I had them done by Thursday, and I'll go, cool, I'll give you a 3rd session next week. Rather than, we're going to start by trying to train 5 times a week, like you just said, we're going to start doing this, and then straight away, I can't do it, I failed, I'm rubbish at this is really overwhelming. We almost want it, it's quite a good position to be in from a confidence perspective, and to feel competent at what we're doing, to go, that was easy. Yeah. Let's take it up a gear.
Big time.
Our brain might go, 2 sessions ain't enough. I need to start with 4. But 2 sessions that then becomes 3, that then becomes 4, and then 4 again over a 4-week period is always going to be 6. That doesn't happen. We get demoralised. We take a week off. We pick ourselves up again. That build in confidence and consistency is just always going to be trying to do everything at once and setting the bar way too high. A phrase that stuck with me, because I had this conversation with a client, holding ourselves to an unfair standard can just have us caught in this cycle of trying to be someone that we're not. Whereas that gradual build of consistency and feeling competent is just a much nicer start to a journey of any kind.
And last, but certainly not least, is reminding yourself of those goals as you go through the year. So whether that is through popping it in your calendar and taking 5-10 minutes to sit down and look at them, something that I really encourage with my clients, something that I do myself, is having some kind of visual cue on a daily basis. Whether that is a little post-it note in your office or on your mirror, or somewhere that you're going to look at by your kettle on a daily basis, to remind yourself of certain goals that you've set, long-term goals, and what you're striving towards, because it can be so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, the mundane, getting bogged down with things, and then you forget what you're trying to focus on and the positives there. I've got a lot of clients that use vision boards, or they will have kind of physical habit stackers that they'll have. One of my clients actually did a really cool one. She made one out of marbles. It's very cool. And maybe having like a pin board or setting it as your wallpaper on your phone. It doesn't matter how you do it, but just something that you've got to prompt you on a more regular basis. Okay, this is what I can achieve. Yeah. This is what I'm striving towards this year. Yeah. Instead of getting into the first week of January, your boss is being a wanker, all of a sudden everything's really overwhelming, the kids are driving you nuts, and you're like, I'm going to put my goals to one side, because that also happens all the time.
Yeah. I think my version of that is pretty much daily journaling. And now that's chatting to ChatGPT so that it can summarise it, normally while I'm in the car, because it's when I've got a bit of time to kill and I'm on my own. But me talking to ChatGPT is just checking in with myself and just seeing how I'm feeling. Again, it's that kind of constant reminder of how am I actually feeling about the day-to-day processes that I'm going through. So
if you do sit down and you map your goals out and you test any of these things that we've spoken about today, let us know. Keep us posted, send us a message, pop us a comment in one of the podcast episodes. We love to hear how you guys have put this into practice. If you've done your vision board, send us a picture. And if you are listening to this and you're majorly on the struggle bus, send us an inquiry, we can get on a call and we can talk about ways that we can actually help to support you with this as well. Because if you've not done this before, it can feel really overwhelming, and if you've got a really busy life and lots going on and you're thinking, I ain't got time to do all of that, then let us take it out of your hands and we can support you to prompt you with some of the practices that we've spoken about today.
And make sure you keep listening to the podcast, because we will remind you to check in with this stuff. We
Absolutely.
will help you navigate that journey next year.
We could do that. We could do an episode on quarterly goal reviews.
Yeah. We're going to have to write it down.
We're going to have to write that down
today.
Yeah, we will forget. We wish you guys a gorgeous New Year's. Have a fabulous start to 2026. I hope that it brings you lots of abundance and peace and fabulous things. And a big thank you from us.
Yeah, thank you for listening, guys, and have a wonderful New Year.
Happy New Year!